Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow virtual farm tour. We are excited that you are joining us today as we not only take a dairy farm tour, but we're also going to explore some careers within the dairy industry by meeting a few dairy industry professionals who work directly with the dairy farmers we'll meet today. Of course, today's tour wouldn't be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, and you can see them on the screen there, Zoetis and Hydrate. So thank you to those companies. For anyone that is new to the Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow, this program is provided by the Dairy Excellence Foundation in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it is available to students and teachers all across the country. The Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow program is comprehensive, and it's designed specifically to prepare high school students to pursue careers in the dairy industry. It uses a three-part model and offers classroom curriculum, scholarships for educators and students, and on-farm experiences, just like this virtual tour that you're experiencing today. So we welcome you to check out our website at www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com to learn more about the program and see if this curriculum would be a good fit for your classroom. If you haven't already, we want to make sure that you click the red subscribe button at the top of our YouTube channel so that you can get notified of any future virtual events. For those of you that are joining us live today, you will have the ability to chat questions and comments. Please feel free to use the live comment stream to comment or ask your questions throughout the tour. We're excited to hear those questions, and I know that our farmers are going to be happy to answer them. One other quick note before we get going on our tour is that we do have a discussion guide available to follow along with today's tour. This is an interactive tool that goes over the topics from each tour, reviews the key points made during each career rotation, and provides some direct links to the Kahoot games we're going to play at the end of each tour, and includes additional links where you can learn more about the careers that are discussed today. You can find that link in the description of the YouTube video. You can find it on the DLT Farm Tour page on our website, or you can also find it in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. So please remember, you need to download that discussion guide and save it as a PDF on your computer before editing or filling it. If you open it from the web, it will not save your answers. All right, I think we are ready to go visit some farms. I wanted to just let you know that our first farm today, that we have some spotty service there. So we are going to be sharing a few pre-recorded videos of the farm. And then later on during our career rotations, we are going to meet Farmer Vickie there and then also be hearing live from our industry professionals. The first stop on today's farm tour is a dairy farm in the southwest region of Pennsylvania. It's called Maple Bottom Farm, and here you can see a map with a star that notes where the farm is located. Maple Bottom Farm is owned and operated by the Baker family, and they're located in Dawson, Pennsylvania, where they house 80 milking cows in a freestall barn and have 2 different milking facilities. Besides milking cows, the Bakers also manage a bed and breakfast right on the farm, and we will also get to hear about their brand new adventure, as you can see from this picture, a seasonal sunflower maze. So without further ado, we are going to kick off our virtual farm tour, and we are going to be joining Brittany Snyder, who is the Dairy Education Manager, and she is out on the farm today, and I think she's joining us from the bed and breakfast. That's what she was hoping for. So, are we ready to meet Brittany?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? And
I hear him now.
All right. Hello, everyone.
There you are.
Hello. Sorry, we were having a little bit of connection, but welcome everyone to the farm tour. As Heidi said, I am actually here in their bed and breakfast that is on the farm. We are getting to enjoy Maple Bottom Farm and getting to meet Vickie and some other professionals they work with today. But we wanted to start you out here at the bed and breakfast, and hopefully you're seeing some footage as well about what the landscape looks like here on the farm. So around the farm, you can see it's a bunch of rolling hills. It's a lot of beautiful landscape and area. They've got an awesome sunflower field we'll talk about later. There's hundreds of acres outside. They've got their farm here in the Robot that we'll talk about later. And here in this building that we're in is a bed and breakfast, and this was actually built in, they think, 1903. And something unique I wanted to show you is actually the front door. If you can see the glass of the front door at their bed and breakfast, that was actually a sign of whether or not the house was paid. So they were allowed to put red glass up in their house if they had paid their house off. So something that's just a cool tidbit when you have an old farmhouse like this. There's lots of cool antique and history things that you get to learn. That was just one of the cool things. So out here in Dawson, PA, they've got this really unique bed and breakfast that people can come and stay in, and it's open year round, and it's part of their agritourism with their Maple Bottom farm. So we are actually going to go ahead and move into the beginning of our tour where you'll get to meet Vickie. Vickie currently is out in the farm right now, finishing getting everything ready for you. So we're going to jump into a recorded video of Vickie showing you the history of the farm. We're going to be outside, and she'll get to show you the feed alley area of where the cows live. So I will go ahead and send it over to Vickie.
So welcome to Maple Bottom Farm. I'm Vickie Baker, and I'm one of the farmers at the farm. My husband Mike and I, he's somewhere sorting cows or driving a skid loader, I'm sure. He and I purchased this farm 5 years ago, and we installed a DLT robotic milker here 4 years ago. We have been dairy farming for 14 years. If you look through the tree line, the farm that I grew up on, you could see if the leaves weren't on the trees. We rented that facility from my parents prior to that, and as well as rented the facility that we're currently on from a neighbor. Mike is not from a dairy. I grew up on a dairy farm, and we got married in July on a Monday. And we always laugh when we told people that when you get married and you milk cows, it really doesn't matter what day of the week you get married on, because they need milked either way at least twice a day. And so we chose a Monday. It was July 3rd, so our guests still had the day off, but we did get married on a Monday. And on that day in July, we had no intentions of milking cows. I was working for Pfizer at the time, and he had his own excavating business. And then my dad had a couple of surgeries and some health issues, and he was either going to sell the cows or sell the cows. And Mike, who enjoyed farming and spending time at the farm and working alongside my dad and helping him, he would actually be there whenever I would call home from work and I was out traveling. And he would answer the phone at dinner time with my parents. And he said, I think I'd like to milk cows. I said, are you sure you want to milk cows? Because this isn't something that you did before. And he said, yep, I want to milk cows. So we put together a business plan. We worked with our extension agent and put together a plan through the FinPack model. We sought financing at that time, and it worked on paper. And so we said, you know what, we're going to go for it. And at that point in time, we continued to rent the facility from my parents, and we purchased their cows, and we also rented their equipment in that rental agreement. And that lasted for us for a number of years. And then we actually later, a couple of years later, purchased the equipment from them and then assumed all of that as well, but still continued to rent their facility. In the meantime, we purchased a 70-acre farm where Mike and I currently live, and it was a mile from their place, and we keep our heifers there from weaning to basically pre-fresh. We still do keep heifers, however, I guess the closer, the little bit older heifers, depending on the season. We have as many out on pasture right now as we can, but we do put some on the hill, which my brother now owns that farm. My brother and sister each own part of that farm, and we rent that barn from him. We moved here 4 years ago, August 9th, were the first cows milked in the Robot, and we purchased this 5 years ago from a lady named Delane Rumbaugh, who she and her family had 11. She and her husband had 11 children, none of which were interested in continuing the farm and agriculture. She knew that Mike and I were really interested in that, and she became kind of like our family over the time period that we rented. We first came here, we didn't know them. We needed hay the year that we bought the cows for my parents. They had sold their cows that year due to some health issues, and we became friends with them. And they said, hey, do you want to rent it? And we said, sure. And we've cropped it ever since. We started out There's 119 acres here. Some of that is pasture. We haven't actually used the pasture. We have all of the materials to convert about 15 acres back into pasture. Then there's the ground that we're standing on, where the buildings and the house are, and then a couple of acres of probably 10 acres or so of woods. And so we came to the decision that we were going to install a robotic milker. So we approached Mrs. Rumbaugh. At that point in time, we'd asked her previous to that if we could buy the farm, and she'd said no. And we came up with an agreement on a purchase price. We negotiated that. And I guess my advice to people who want to basically be successful in any career, but especially in the industry, is that there are people out there, there are good people out there who want to see dairy farming and agriculture continue. And if you do the right things for the right reasons, it'll pay off. And for us, it did, because we were able to negotiate a great price with her on this facility when we didn't even think it was possible. So it doesn't hurt to ask also one last time. But we do crop here. We crop about 350 acres total. We grow all of our own corn for forage. We don't grow any for shell corn. Prior to this year, we also grew soybeans, but we looked at market prices and we didn't think that we could make any money at that this year. So we decided not to put that in our crop rotation. We did plant sorghum because we had lost some hay ground this year and we needed to add tonnage to our basically for heifer inventory. And then we planted the 5 acres of sunflowers, which were super successful on the agritourism side. And so at this facility, we had rented prior to that, and you can kind of see from the roof line where there's a couple of different additions. If I was to build a dairy new, this isn't the exact facility that I would build and the structures of the barns, but I think it shows a great example of how we were able to utilize existing facilities to upgrade them and still meet cow comfort needs. So we're going to walk over towards the barn. I give a lot of tours, and at this point in the tour, I talk to them about how much cows eat, and the people are amazed that, one cow eats 100 pounds of feed a day and drinks a bathtub full of water. That means that she also makes a lot of manure, and on our farm, our manure storage is only about 3 to 4 weeks of storage. At some point, we'll add more storage. But we didn't want to go from a robot who was going to take milking cows out of daily chores to then hauling manure daily. So we were able to put in 3 to 4 weeks of storage, which is at the far end of the barn, and that is underneath our Guernsey group of cows. And that works, that's worked for us. So as we move into the barn, we've got this addition, and we added 65 feet total to the structure of the barn. Prior to us being here, the addition that was on here when we were renting the facility was a pack barn that we were using for heifers. The gentleman that farmed here had added it on just 2 years before we started to rent, and he milked cows in the stanchions. And we renovated that into a 3-row freestall. And then we added on 65 feet. We added on 25 feet for the robot room and for the physical robot, as well as the milk house. And then we added 40 feet at the end of the barn, which was supposed to be for our dry cows, for our far off cows, which they're now in pasture behind us. But now it's actually the housing for our Guernsey group, and we keep the far off cows either on pasture or again at my parents' old facility that my brother now owns. So you can see when we walk in here, we're a little bit different than most of you might see. Our bunk is raised. We feed that with our TMR. We do go through and we feed that, but the cows do push it out. So we do have to use a skid loader to manually push up feed several times a day. Again, that was one of those modifications that we had to do so that we could have an extended roof line, because I'm standing under where the roof line ended prior to that. So we added this feed alley on so that we could have it enclosed and hopefully not suffer too much air quality. We try to keep the ceilings as high as possible. Our cows come into this barn, and we use our RFIDs, which we do tag the calves the day that they're born. We use an RFID, and that button tag is what we use to manage all the cows. So In the freestyle group, we're in our robot group now. They can go anytime that they want, anywhere. The cows live on mattresses, which we do bed with sawdust. You can see that in the background. And then we use the green freestalls. The green freestalls have been nice for us because we have all of the breeds of dairy cows here. When my parents thought that it was time for us to start 4-H and I was 8 years old, we had an all registered, or I'm sorry, an all grade herd of Holstein cows, and they allowed us each to pick our own breed. At that time, I picked Guernseys because that's what my friends had. My sister picked Brown Swiss because that's what that her friends had, and I'm not sure what our infinite wisdom as 6 and 7 year olds was that we picked instead of showing against our siblings, we wanted to show against our friends. We added all of the breeds, and right now we do not actually own any milking shorthorns. We do milk a milking shorthorn for one of the 4-H kids that we house cows for. We do house cows for 6 other families. I am the 4-H club leader in our county, and all of those families at one point in time, their families did milk cows, and we feel it's important that they still have the opportunity to have cows and to become and to still stay involved in agriculture in whatever that field might be, because I think that that's one of the goals of the tour today is to expose you to some different careers, and you don't have to milk cows in order to be involved in agriculture. There's a lot of different job opportunities and a lot of people that help us here on the farm maintain our success. So in this facility, the cows come in. Again, this is our freestyle group. We're a guided flow because they do have to go through the robot, through the sort gate, in order to come back out to the feed bunk, but we're also kind of free flow because we do have a group that is obviously just across the feed alley here that can eat anytime that she wants. They do have to go through, though, in order to get water. And one thing that I've learned about robot facilities is you kind of rethink everything that you know about cows and you make it work. Because, again, the water is one of the things that helps move our cows through. So they're in this area. Again, our Guernsey group here, our robot group does include Guernsey cows, and it includes all of our other breeds in here. We try to manage our Guernsey group based on the number of pounds of milk that we need to make a batch of cheese. And currently, the facility that we're working with, the maximum number of pounds that they can take at a time is 2,000. So we manage how many cows are over there based on that 2,000 pounds. We found that our robot, that our sweet spot is about 58 cows, but anywhere up to about 63 is still okay. So we do use genomics on all of our Guernseys. We A2 test all of them as well. I do breed every cow of every breed to A2 only Guernsey, or only bulls, not just Guernsey. So whether she's a Holstein or a Jersey, for the last 8 to 10 years, we've been using only A2 bulls. Yep. And so one of the reasons that we're processing our milk for Guernseys is because, you know, 90% of the milk produced in the United States is from Holstein cows. About another 8% is from Jersey cows, and the 2% of the rest of the milk comes from all the other breeds. I'm the treasurer of the American Guernsey Association, and we only register about 4,000 Guernseys a year in this country, so we're not a very big breed. But as time shifted and what we looked for in dairy shifted, so did the composition of the milk to some degree. Now, it's always important to me that people know that all milk is good. And in the 1950s and 60s, when Guernseys were the primary breed in the United States and they produced the majority of the milk, the tagline for them was everything good and more. And so I think that still holds true today, that all milk is good, all dairy milk is good. Guernsey milk just has a little bit more in it. And so they call them golden Guernseys because they do not digest the beta carotene that they consume, so they pass that into their milk, and they give their milk a really rich, deep golden color. Also, Guernsey cows carry A2 beta casein primarily. In the Holstein population, some of the documented research, which needs updated because I'm sure it's higher now, shows that only 15% of Holstein cows are A2, whereas 93% of Guernseys tested carry the A2 gene. A2 beta casein. Beta casein is a protein in milk. Many people think that they are lactose intolerant when they drink milk and they can't digest it. However, we found that the majority of those people are self-diagnosed. They just know when they drink milk, it doesn't really work well for them. It might be the protein that they can't digest, not the lactose. Lactose is milk sugar. A2 is a beta casein protein. And so the majority of our Guernseys are naturally occurring A2. We do have 2 that are tested. One was from sex semen that I used when the sex semen was early in its development and I wanted to use it. Turns out that bull was A1, A2. So his daughter is in our robot group, and I also bought an embryo and she turned out A1, A2, and she is my daughter's very favorite cow, and she doesn't understand why Slinky can't live with the rest of the princesses. But this is our Guernsey group. We milk them twice a day in tie stalls. They stay out here in the free stalls and they hang out, and then we move them twice a day. We have 14 tie stalls in the barn that we have to then switch groups for whenever we go to take the Guernseys in to be milked.
All right, thanks a lot, Vickie. That was very informative, and I see we have lots of questions coming in, going over some of those things that Vickie was talking about, and she is going to join us here in a little bit, and we will get to some of those questions. But right now, I think it's really cool that we can see how farms can change and grow over time, which is exactly what they did at Maple Bottom Farm. Dairy farms across the country are just like this, and they find innovative ways to work with the buildings they have to offer the best quality they can for their cows. So we're going to join Vickie again. She's going to be outside of the milk tank room now, and we're going to learn about their milk storage. And then we're going to check out a pen that they have for their very special cows. All right, Vickie, go ahead.
All right, so we're going to go into our tank room for our robot group. And we do maintain 2 basically separate facilities on the farm. We have our robot group and then our Guernsey group. And so here's kind of where we are able to divert milk. We do feed waste milk straight from the cow. It's delivered within about a half an hour of whenever the cow's milked. So we currently don't pasteurize. I would love to put in a pasteurizer at some point, but that just hasn't been feasible based on the way that the robot works. So we're kind of waiting for technology to catch up a little bit for a herd our size. We milk about 80 cows, 60 of those through the robot, about 20 through the Guernsey group. And so again, here is our tank for the robots. We're going to walk through the office space, and then you'll also see our tank room, which is the original facility. Again, this was an old stanchion barn at one point. We do have 4 units in there. And so this is not very big. Again, we're only milking our Guernsey cows in here. Our goal would be to eventually downsize our herd again so that we can do just 60 cows and do all Guernsey cows. Currently, half of the herd is Guernsey, even whichever pen she's milked in on the mature cow side. And we're at about 2/3 Guernsey on the heifer side. We have been doing some crossbreeding to Guernseys. We do run a bull. I know it's not ideal, but we can't heat detect when we're not there on our heifer group. So we timed AI them the first time, and then we put a bull with them for any repeats on our other breeds. So again, original tank here, we run 4 units. And then as we walk out here into the main bank barn, watch your head whenever you come through. We've got 2 groups of cows in here, and this is also where we milk. To the left of us is our vet room, and we are able to do IVF in there. It's usually just storage though, because we haven't done much IVF in the last 2 years because of economics. But as we walk in here, we've got 2 groups of cows, and then we've got our tie stalls. We've got 14 tie stalls here. It's a pretty simple facility. We walk them in, we tie them up. We move the units down as we go, and then they go back out whenever they're done. Our 2 groups in here, our pasture cows come in 2 to 3 weeks before they calve, and they come into a bedded pack, and we do calve them in here. We have 4 cameras on the farm. One of them is above our calving area, one above our feed alley, one in our holding pen, and the 4th one is in our robot so we can see what's going on. The cows that live in this pack over here, we call this our princess pack. And in order to be here, you've got to be special. You either have to be special needs or just a special cow. Unfortunately, the girls in here right now are all pretty much just special. My son's 2 very favorite cows are in here. My niece's show cows in here. The Jersey cow that's in here right now, she actually is sold and she will leave later today and sold for dairy purposes. We do a fair amount of culling for dairy as well. And so she's about 3 weeks fresh this week, and they wanted to calve her in here, didn't want the heifer calf that she was having, wanted to make sure she was good to go, and so we're going to get her out here. But this area gets a lot of traffic, and so we are able to watch cows in here and monitor them if they need it.
All right. That's pretty cool how Vickie has a special place for her princess cows that she called them, her special cows. Thanks for sharing that with us, Vickie. Just want to remind you guys that are watching, don't forget to type in those questions. I have a long list I'm starting already. Some of them I think Vickie has been answering as she's sharing some of these places on the farm. But once we catch up live with Vickie, we are going to have her answer some of these questions. So get those questions in. And I think Vickie is going to show us now the calves on the farm. So let's go see those little babies.
Okay, so welcome to our calves. As you can see, this is Jabber, and she is one of the Guernsey calves that we have here on the farm. Our calves move into hutches right away. We take them from mom pretty much as soon as they're born. Within the first hour, we let her lick them off, and then we move them in and make sure that they get their colostrum. We test all of our. We want to make sure that it is of the right quality and the right quantity. So we take our calves right away from mom, and we make sure that they get a gallon of colostrum in the first hour, and then another gallon of colostrum 8 hours later. And we use a Brix refractometer for that. We move them into the individual hutches so that they can social distance from each other and keep from spreading diseases amongst each other. And they maintain their time in the hutches for about 8 weeks on milk. And then we transfer them to once a day. They were getting a gallon twice a day. We transfer them to once a day feeding. And then from there, they're getting grain and water the entire one of our Swiss calves. They stay on that grain and water then after that, and then we wean them and move them to one of our other farms after that 8 weeks, and they move into group pens at about 10 to 12 weeks at the other farm.
Awesome. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think the calves are the cutest part of the farm. We're going to finish up our general farm tour, and Vickie's going to share with us about their recently launched agritourism adventures. I know Brittany shared some of that in the introduction, but Vickie, it looks like you're standing in a sunflower field. So we're looking forward to hearing all about this.
So welcome to our sunflower maze. This is the first year that we planted sunflowers, and we did 5 acres. We did 2 different fields, and they are a black oil sunflower commercial use. And in November, when the moistures get to the appropriate levels, we will actually combine them and harvest them and sell the seeds for birdseed. But that's kind of a secondary market for us. We had 2 active sunflower mazes, which started in August and ran through the beginning of September. The sunflowers themselves take 60 days to get ready. So we planted on June 10th and June 24th, and we assumed that they would be ready on August 10th. It was a bit of a learning experience for us, though, because we were in 2/3 bloom by the 5th of August. So the heat of the summer and the lack of moisture was really key in everything that happened here. Our first maze did fabulous. The sunflowers reached about 7 feet tall, and so you really couldn't see what you were doing whenever you walked through the sunflowers. And people really enjoyed it. So lots of people have been through a sunflower maze, but or through a corn maze rather, but not through a sunflower maze. And it got really cool for them. People of all ages. We drew people from 2 to 3 hours away. We were featured on a really awesome website towards the end of our sunflowers called onlyinyourstate.com, and it features a lot of places in it that are super popular, really amazing places to visit, and we ended up being one of those and recognized as one of the feature locations. So we anticipate next year that we'll plant 3 or 4 different fields of sunflowers and just continue to grow that. The great part was that we drew thousands of people to the farm. It was a great place for people to get out and spend and enjoy with their families. But not only did they come to the farm to see the sunflowers, every person that was here got to experience our calves, and they really got a lot of education there too. So we were pleased to be able to open up and offer that opportunity to them, as well as feature local made ice cream and our own cheese curds. So the sunflowers, again, they'll grow to 7 feet tall. It was also pretty educational because you can see them in here that they get pretty tall, and this field got moisture at the right times. But due to the lack of rain this summer, the second field only matured to about 4 feet. So most people thought we just planted a different variety of sunflowers, and that's not the case. They were definitely just ones that didn't get enough moisture in the right time to germinate and to grow. But it's been pretty popular. We had weddings here already. We've had engagements. We've had anniversaries. A couple celebrated their 68th anniversary. We had baptism pictures here, adoption pictures, and we just drew a lot of people to the farm because they want to be out here and they want to see what's going on. And they're asking what our fall activities are. And at this point, we don't really have anything. We are going to plan a movie on the barn night where we'll do a kids movie and project it onto our barn. So agritourism is part of our business and a growing part that allows us to educate consumers as well as get them to the farm.
Wow, thanks, Vickie. That's a pretty cool adventure there with the sunflowers. I know that video showed the sunflower fields that were nearing the end of their life. And so we're going to show you guys a few photos where the sunflowers were in full bloom, where you can see how beautiful they were. As Vickie said, they planted 2 fields of sunflowers. And not only did this bring a new learning curve and finding out how to care and grow sunflowers, but it also became a popular destination for locals to visit. So in this last photo, you can actually see an aerial view of the sunflower field. And amazingly, Vickie designed this maze herself, and she worked with her husband to cut the sunflowers down just in the right spots to create this awesome maze that was a giant milk bottle with the word milk in it. So what a neat learning opportunity for the many people who came, and they got to experience the farm and the calves and just a lot of education there. So thanks, Vickie, for that tour of your farm. I think we are ready to join Vickie live. Are you there, Vickie?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Okay. There she is.
There I am. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Hi. Hey, thanks so much for taking us on a tour of your farm.
Sure.
Very educational, interesting things, fun things you have going on there.
Yes, it's been an amazing summer here, Heidi.
Awesome. Well, I know you had a very busy morning, but we have had quite a few questions come in while you were going on the tour. So I'm going to just take a few minutes and ask you some of those. Some of them are ones that you answered in your video, but do you name your cows, Vickie?
I'm
Do your
sorry, what was
cows,
the first question?
do
Okay, go
your
ahead.
cows have names?
Absolutely, they have names. They have numbers as well as names. We're in the barn now, and you can see this cow right here. Her name is Moonshine, but her number is 440. So we have two number 440s actually in the barn, number 440 Jammer and number 440 Moonshine. Moonshine was actually purchased from another farm. So we use RFIDs to identify the cows in the computer because it's unique, and it's unique to only her and in the country, actually. Numbers on there, but they've all actually got names too. We're in front of our Princess Pack this morning, which I know you guys saw earlier in the video. And we've got this morning in here, we've got Moonshine, and we've got Kratz named after wild Kratz, and we've got Reba back here. Leah is in our pre-fresh group over here, and at some point Flip Flop went out to be milked, and she may come back in here too. So just a sample of the girls and all their names.
Awesome. And you brought up that they have those tags in their ears. I did have a few
Correct.
questions with people
Sure.
asking specifically. So do they have more than just one tag in their ear?
Yeah. They've got a couple of different forms of identification on them. They've got a white button tag, which is in their left ear. And you can see that on Moonshine, the white button on the left. And then typically we tag our number tag on the right ear. But again, we purchased Moonshine, so she's got two in one ear, and her buttons were switched. So they've got that white button RFID tag and then a number tag also on each of them. And some of the girls have a blue collar on them, and none of them in this group actually do, because this is our pack. But that blue collar is not an actual identification, although it's got a number on it. It's actually their Fitbit, and it measures activity on them.
Cool. Such awesome technology on the farm nowadays, huh?
Absolutely.
Someone asked the question, how long do cows typically live and produce milk?
So the average cow in our barn is 5 years old. Moonshine is actually 5 years old, and so she's average. The oldest cow on our farm right now is 10. Her name is Vi, and she's going to have her 9th calf here next month. She's due at I think it's November 4th. With heifer calf. And so they will live depending on the farm. But on our farm, it's 5. About a third of our herd is made up of first lactation cows, which are 2-year-olds that have had just one calf. Another third is made up of second lactation cows. And then the last third is made up of those cows that are third lactation and greater. And they don't have their first calf until they're 2 years old. So those are our 5-year-old and greater animals in that third group.
Okay, and that actually leads to another question. Someone asked, how long are cows pregnant?
Yeah, so cows are a lot like people. They've got a 21-day period that goes between their cycles, and then when they become pregnant, they're pregnant for 9 months, and they put the biggest amount of energy into growing their calf during that last trimester. So that's why we give them that 2-month dry period that they have, which is the time from one calf to the next, and they go out and they just spend 2 months basically on maternity leave, and they take that amount of time to grow that calf and develop it during that 9 months.
Okay, and somebody asked about why you take the calves from their mothers right away and why they can't stay with their mothers.
Right. We get that question a lot, Heidi, and the reason is pretty simple. It's sometimes dangerous for the calf to stay with mom. There was one year where we had a cow who stepped on her calf because we weren't there right away, and it broke its leg. We were able to successfully put a splint on that calf, and she grew fine, and did have her own calf here just last year. So it can sometimes be dangerous, but the main reason is because of health, and it's health for the calf. A calf is one of the few animals that's born with virtually no immune system. So she starts to develop her entire immune system as soon as it's that from her colostrum. And I mentioned a little bit in the calf segment about that we make sure that each calf gets a full gallon of colostrum in the first 2 hours. Now, some of the cows won't even make an entire gallon of colostrum in their first milking. And so if we relied on Mother Nature and the calf to actually nurse her, she wouldn't get enough colostrum. It also might not be a good enough quality of colostrum. We measure the colostrum with a Brix refractometer to determine how good it is. And if it's of poor quality, we keep frozen colostrum and have a replacer that we can use to supplement if needed. Then we give her a second feeding 8 hours later, another entire colostrum. So we keep them in individual pens so that they can social distance. I know that a lot of you are watching from home right now, and some of you might be in school, but you're probably a little bit further apart in your desks than you were when you left school last March. And that's so that we don't spread diseases between calf to calf, because most calves take in diseases through their mouth and through their nose. And when a calf is born, she's up and walking and within an hour or two, really. And when she stands up, she's not ready to run a race, although they get pretty fast pretty quick. But she may stand up and nosedive down to the ground, and it might not be as clean as we would like. Or she, made a mess when she had her calf right there. So we want to take her out. We want to keep her clean. We want to make sure that she can start to develop that immune system so that she becomes a healthy calf and into a productive cow.
Absolutely. And that actually leads really well into a question that somebody had. Can cows catch a virus? And how do you protect them from that?
Yes, cows can absolutely catch viruses. Cows get viruses which cause a variety of different diseases in them, but we do a great job at vaccinating our calves against many of those viruses. There are about typical viruses that we can vaccinate our cows for. And we do that with our calves once their immune system is starting to develop. They get their first injectable vaccines around 4 months. But the day that they're born, they get vaccinated in their nose against 3 different viruses: BRSV, IBR, and PI3 are those 3 viruses. And so we want to protect them right away so that they can start to develop that. And we use the in-force vaccine, and that creates an immune response within 24 hours. So we want to protect them because viruses can cause a variety of diseases, including rest diseases, as well as reproductive diseases.
Awesome. So a lot similar to humans, that we, stay on a vaccination schedule. And
right.
Yeah. Awesome. I had some questions come in about your A2A2. So somebody wanted to know, what's the A2A2 bull? And you did explain the A2A2 milk in the video, but if you just want to give us a little more about, what you're doing with that and what that is.
Sure. So a calf inherits 2. They inherits A2 and A2, hopefully, one from each parent. So that's why we make sure that they're homozygous for that, meaning that they've inherited the A2 gene from both parents. They get one from both. So we test those. All of the bulls pretty much now in AI are tested for A2. So we know when we're selecting, and some of you guys are in science class. And so think about a typical Punnett square, and you put an A2 and an A2 and draw your quadrant box. And that's how we can determine what the likelihood is that that cow, if mated to a non-A2A2 bull, would end up as A2A2 herself. But we've been concentrating on that. All of the bulls and all of the breeds that we've been using, we've been doing that since for probably 8 to 10 years, like A2A2 bulls for not just our Guernseys, which are the highest naturally occurring, but also in our other breeds.
Awesome. Well, that's a good lesson for us to learn about, the genetics and how you guys do all of that stuff. We're going to take a break here from questions, and we're going to transition into our career rotations. Before we do that, I do just want to remind everyone that we do have a discussion guide available that you can follow along with today's tours. It's interactive, goes over all the topics, reviews key points about the careers that we're going to talk about. And at the end, we are going to play a Kahoot game, and you'll want that to get the link to that. You can find that on the YouTube video page. You can find that on our DLT Farm Tour page, or in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. Don't forget to download it directly to your computer so that you can edit it and fill it out. So with that, we are keep chatting those questions. We're going to try and answer as many as we can as we go throughout our tour here this morning. But we are going to begin with our first career rotation, which features the ag accountant for Maple Bottom Farm. Angie Pecora is with $1 Million Accounting LLC, and she helps Vickie with all of her basic accounting needs, as well as she does payroll and is an extra set of eyes on the finances on the farm. So I believe, Angie, are you there with us?
Yes, Heidi, I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. We're glad to see you. So I'm going to just give you an opportunity to tell us what you do at Maple Bottom Farm.
Sure thing. So specifically for Maple Bottom Farm, I do offer them payroll services, and that is a full plate of payroll services. So every couple weeks, they send me their payroll hours and assess their payroll checks for their employees, make sure all their payroll taxes and filings are done timely and on time, and then obviously process their year-end W-2s for those employees as well. I also provide tax consulting, tax planning, and tax preparation services. So as we all know, we all have to file a tax return. And so this, being on a farm is no different than any other operation or business. So we do file those filings as well. Part of that is reviewing the records. Now here at Maple Bottom Farm, Vickie and Mike do their own, what I'll call in-house record keeping. So they pay their bills, they get deposits, and they use QuickBooks to track that on a daily basis. I'm a second set of eyes that I do review that periodically, making sure things are in the right categories, things make sense, appear reasonable, and just kind of give an overview of their operation as well. That does lead into tax planning. So obviously no one likes to pay more taxes than they have to, and there's opportunities to leverage and minimize your tax liability through that process as well. In addition to what I provide to Maple Bottom Farm, I also, for other operations, do record keeping services in-house. So I'm that. So Vickie goes ahead and does that herself for her operation in QuickBooks. But oftentimes I am that person who is putting it into a software program and providing financial statements to the customer as well. I'm also really just a trusted advisor. So oftentimes operations need lending or finances from a bank. They're going to need a balance sheet. They're going to need a profit and loss statement. And those things I often help with making a budget. Obviously, the ag industry is very volatile, so it goes up and down, and with that, the finances kind of go with it as well. So that's really a brief of what I do for Maple Bottom Farm themselves, and then in my capacity as an accountant for the ag industry as well.
Great. If any of you watching live have any specific questions for Angie, I have a few here that I'm going to ask her, but while we have Angie with us, if you want to chat any of those questions, go ahead and do that. Angie, one question I had for you is, what are some key skills that you need to be an ag accountant?
Well, it helps to have an ag background and to have an understanding of the ag. I'm an expert in no specific field of ag. Obviously, there is many branches and many different types of agriculture, but having a background does help. So I was born and raised on a dairy farm myself in Westmoreland County. 20 years ago, I would have told you that I was going to milk cows for a living. So that obviously career path has changed. But it helps to have that. I always say you can train for the skills of accounting and tax and record keeping, but it's hard to train ag, if that.
Absolutely. I think we lost you there a little bit. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, there we got you. So you're saying you don't necessarily need to grow up in the dairy industry to have your job as an ag accountant, but it definitely helps.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you don't, there are many ag accountants that don't have an ag background. So it's not a requirement. It's just a little extra bonus that does help you along the way. You're able to relate to that farmer or that operation a little bit easier.
Absolutely. And speak the language and have a better understanding. Cool.
Correct.
What is your favorite part of being an ag accountant?
Can you repeat the question? You cut out on me.
Sure. What is your favorite part of being an ag accountant?
That's a tough one. It's two-pronged in my opinion. I'm an accountant by trade, so the numbers have to match, things have to equal, things have to make sense. And then the second, so that excites me as an accountant. And then the other part is helping the customer. So farmers are great in the field, they're great with their animals. They're great at their business. So oftentimes the finances is not the fun part of their business. And so because that is my sweet spot, I enjoy helping them understand that, help them make sense of it, and then add that as a value added service to their operation.
That's great. They absolutely need that business side of the things. And so it's good to have a good accountant who understands what's going on and understands their business. Are there certain programs or equipment that you work with as an ag accountant?
So I typically, yes and no. I typically have 3 different types of software or programs, I'll call it. One is your basic manual program where people still like to just use the check register and a manual record book to categorize their income and expenses. I use a software called Centerpoint Accounting for Agriculture. It is an ag specific software, so it does what I call speak the ag language when it comes to categorizing those incomes and expenses. It does a little bit better at tracking inventory if you're wanting to do that. And if you have more than one enterprise on your farm, it does really well at enterprise accounting. The most common is probably QuickBooks. It is a very user-friendly, easy, simple software to use. It's very convenient back and forth between accountant and the client. So either one of those options, I would say, I deal with all 3 on a daily basis.
Okay. And is ag accounting a job that you work year round?
Yes, absolutely. So most of the time, obviously, I'm a tax accountant. So tax season typically, minus 2020, is January through April. There are a time period for extensions. So actually this time period is like a miniature tax season because individuals have until October 15th to file their extended tax returns. So these 2 weeks of October, for those who have waited to the last minute, ends up being like a little tax season. But throughout the year, you're doing the record keeping and the payrolls and a lot of the tax consulting. So you're preparing for that tax season. You're doing tax planning, which usually happens starting September, October, November, December timeframe, depending on each operation and when income fluctuates and whatnot. So it does what I'll call slack a little bit, probably in the summertime, not in 2020, because the government extended the deadline to July. So it's been, quite frankly, it's felt like tax season all year long. But yeah, so there are other things besides just tax return preparation in the accounting field that keeps you busy all year long.
Okay, but certain seasons of the year, you're definitely busier than other times of the year.
Most definitely. If I had to categorize it, the beginning of the year is busiest, and then the end of the year. So the first quarter and the fourth quarter is probably the busiest.
Okay. What kind of schooling or training did you have to take to have this job?
So I went to school with a major in accounting. So I did graduate with an accounting degree in accounting. I attempted to take the CPA exam, I will shamelessly admit, 10 times and did not pass that. But the IRS offers a certification called Enrolled Agent. So it is also a test and exam, a 3-part exam that you're able to take. And basically your certification is through the IRS instead of the State Board of Accountancy, which is the CPA exam. So those two, with my accounting degree and the EA certification, I'm able to basically do everything that a certified public accountant can do, with the exception of auditing. I cannot issue an opinion. Audit financial statement has to be done by a licensed CPA, but otherwise we are the same.
Okay. I had two questions come in here from our live viewers.
Sure.
One is, how long have you worked with Maple Bottom Farm?
Oh, geez. 17, almost 3 years, I believe, is where we're at. Time escapes me. It might be longer, but I think 3 years.
Okay. That's great. And do you ever get to be involved with the cows as the accountant of the farm, or are you just mainly looking at the finances and the books and the records?
For the most part, it's really just the finances, but Vickie put me to work this morning because she had some trouble. So I helped her, let out some cows this morning. So I do try to.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do try to get involved because that helps you understand their operation. And even though you're just looking at the numbers, when you look at the numbers and understand the background of the operation, it makes it a little bit easier.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today. If anyone joining live has any other questions for Angie, please submit those. We'll try to get to them, but thanks a lot for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to tell our viewers today, Angie? You want them to know about ag accounting?
Can you repeat the question again? You cut out on me real quick.
Sure. Is there anything else you wanted to share with our viewers about ag accounting?
I think the only thing that I would leave you with is always keep your doors open. I started out in my career not as an ag accountant. So I did work for a CPA firm in the city of Pittsburgh. And then I moved on to work at a university, which are in no way connected to agriculture, probably for the first 12 years of my career. And through a connection that I had in the 4-H program, that led to working for a farm organization, in their tax and records and accounting program. So that was like my dream sweet spot, because it was being able to do what I enjoy and what I'm good at, but get back to my roots as in agriculture. So if you would have told me when I graduated college that I was going to be an ag accountant, I probably would have laughed at you. But so it is possible, and there are opportunities to start out as an ag accountant. That was not my career path. But definitely an opportunity for anyone, any high school student who's looking to do that.
Very good. Well, I think that's great advice. And like I said, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks for all you do for Maple Bottom Farm. Like I said, if you have questions for Angie, submit them in the live comment stream. But in the meantime, we are going to switch over to one of our special guests that we have joining us today. We are going to meet our newly crowned Pennsylvania State Dairy Princess, Gabrielle Swavely. Hi, Gabby.
Hi, everyone. As she said, my name is Gabrielle Swavely, and I am your 2020-2021 Pennsylvania Dairy Princess. I did not grow up on a dairy farm, but my mom instilled in me a passion for the dairy industry that runs 4 generations deep. I decided I want to involve with the dairy industry, and I currently milk cows on the Drybobus Dairy Farm 5 minutes from my house. I think that it's really important for you guys to understand that you don't need to come from a dairy farm to be part of this industry, because there is a place for everyone. Next up on our tour today, we have Kevin Hohall, who works with Graham Supply and is the robot technician here at Maple Bottom Farms. We'll take it away to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Gabby. I think they're going to pass the mic there, and I'm just going to give you a little introduction here. Maple Bottom Farm has a really unique opportunity for us to see a robot, which is a really cool technology used on farms. And so we're excited to share that with you today. If you have questions as Kevin is giving his presentation, make sure you get those in the live comment chat, and we will try to get Kevin to answer those questions as we have time. So Kevin, if you're ready, we're going to join you in the robot room there at Maple Bottom Farm.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin, and I do work for Graham Dairy Supply. I've started in 2012 with them. How I got to work with them is probably not what you're expecting. As Gabrielle mentioned, same with her. I did not grow up on a dairy farm. I had never milked a cow in my life, and my dairy experience consisted of a 4th grade field trip to a dairy farm. I graduated high school in 1996 and went to Grove City College, where I decided I wanted to be an eye doctor. So I was in the pre-med program. As that went along, I decided that wasn't for me. I didn't want to do any more schooling afterwards, so I switched to an environmental influence. And just out of college, I pretty much got my dream job with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. I did that for a while, but unfortunately they cut my position statewide. So again, I was looking for a job, and a friend of mine whose family owns a telecommunications business needed some help. I ended up starting with them, having no experience in that field, and found myself there 10 years later. How I got to where I am, I was actually in the shop of my boss, Dennis Graham. And out of the blue, he asked me if I would like to come work for him. He saw that I was familiar with computers, not afraid to be on a computer, fairly. So he offered a job, and as things went, I started work for him in December of 2012. Everything I learned was about the dairy industry has come from the guys I work with, the farmers I deal with, and just my on-the-job experience. I learned all the equipment and the things I work on by basically shadowing one of our other technicians for about 6 months. At the end of that, I did go to some training through DLT. I did that in Wisconsin, their training facility, and have done a couple on-the-job trainings stuff since then. So I am our robot technician, but I do also work at other dairy farms in their parlors, on their pipelines, the vacuum systems, air systems, calf feeders. There's an automatic calf feeder that feeds the calves, robotic, much like this machine. So that's my background of how I got to where I am. Again, had never milked a cow in my life. Did not know a whole lot about the physiology of the cow and breeding cycle, things like that. Again, I've learned all of that on the job. Because of that, I do not make a whole lot of recommendations to farmers about their cows. I leave that to them because they know more than I do. But what I do work on is their equipment, the robot that you see here behind me. So what we want to do here is we will show the process of a cow coming into the robot and being milked. When this one, she's going to be finishing up here in a second. We see the arm coming off here and it taking off the teat cups, taking the milk from her. We still have one attached, and what we're going to see is when it comes off, the arm is going to go back under and spray her with an iodine spray. Those of you that are on dairy farms, you're used to dipping your cows post-milking. This is going to accomplish that same thing. So when she's finished, it will release her from the stall and the next cow is going to come in. If you're wondering why the cows want to come in here, first off, they're getting a food in here that usually we try to provide some tasty that they want to come in and eat. And secondly, as many of you probably know, a cow needs to be and wants to be milked. So when they know it's their time, they make their way around the barn toward the robot. Now, if they have permission to be milked, there's gates that they go through in the barn. Every cow is wearing an ID tag in her ear, and it reads that tag. If she has permission to be milked, it will let her into the holding area. If it's not her time to be milked, she'll be circled back around the barn and need to come later. So there we see it spraying the iodine on her. It's pumping the milk over. Right now it's washing our camera to make sure it's nice and clean so it can see the teats on the next cow that comes in. There the gate opens. We're going to wash the floor off here. Here's our next cow. She goes straight in. She's going to start eating. As she's eating, the first thing we're going to do, it's going to have a cup here that's going to off her teats. This is using a warm water solution with a cleanser in it. It's alternating the air and the water, and then using vacuum to take all that liquid away from her teat. It's going to do all 4 teats here. This also serves as the stimulation phase on this cow. The warm water and contact down her milk. For anybody who milks in a parlor or a tie stall, your cleaning of them before you milk them provides the same thing. Usually you strip out some milk before you attach the milkers. This is doing that exact same thing. So it's washing her 3rd quarter here, and it's going to move on. Hopefully get the 4th one here. And there we go. So now we're going to attach each of the cups to each quarter. Looks like we're going to double clean this cow. You can see the red line, it's the laser from the camera. That is what's actually doing all the locating underneath of her. Every's milked. The computer is saving her teat positions so that anytime she comes in, if things change a little bit, it's always saving them as she moves through her lactation and her bag changes. It will help the robot to identify where to attach. Okay, so now we are going to move on to milking. And here we're grabbing the first teat cup. You'll see 2 different lasers flash here. You'll see it better when it attaches her front quarters here. First, we're attaching to the 2 rear teats. And now you'll see 1 laser will flash. That's generally finding the teat it's going to attach to. A 2nd laser comes on to fine tune it. And it attaches and senses the vacuum. Oh, we got a little hung up there. With that attached, it's going to come out, and now it's going to hold the hoses so they're in a nice position underneath this cow. Let me step into the picture here. We'll show you what's going on the screen here. This is broken down per quarter of the cow. Here we're seeing the cow's overall expected yield. She's expected to give 30 pounds this milking. Out of each quarter, here's what we expect. How many pounds out of each quarter? This line here with the bar going up is how much she's giving as she approaches that expected yield. And over here, we have her flow rate on that, how many pounds per minute is coming from that quarter. From the screen, we could look at some information about this cow, how many days in milk she is, where she is in her lactation, some kickoffs, some incompletes that may have happened through her recent
What?
milkings.
Yeah,
So we'll go to her. and
we'll
can
film
also-
her, and then when Heidi turns.
In their herd here. So back to our milking screen, we see her progressing through. As a technician, I can control many things on the robot through these different menus. Maybe if we have a chance between a cow here, I can show you, we can show some of those, some of the different tools that we use for diagnosis.
Kevin, while you're showing us some of this, I have a bunch of questions coming in. Do you want
Sure.
me to ask you a few of those now?
Yes, you can. We have a little bit of time here while it's going to milk her out. Go ahead.
Okay, this is really cool technology that we can use on the farm, and it's exciting that people can get to
Sure.
see this today.
Yeah.
Somebody wonders, how long does it take to milk one cow?
Okay, so the goal on stall time, we try to shoot for about 7 minutes. That's from the time she steps in, it cleans her, milks her, treats her, and sends her out. 7 minutes is a great goal to have. Depending on your cow and its yield and how long attachment takes, sometimes it does take a little bit longer than that. We did do a double wash on this cow, so that took a little bit more time up front there. But yeah, 7 minutes is our goal that most guys are shooting for.
Okay, and so if the cows come in more, like they're not needing milked, the robot will recognize that and not put the milker on, correct?
What happens is we actually have a gate out in the barn, and that gate is making the first decision whether that cow can even come to the robot. If she comes to the robot and the robot knows, the system knows it's not time for her to be again yet, it will send her back out into the barn where she can go eat some more, drink some more, lay down, or just make the circle and come back. Once she is granted permission, then it lets her into a holding area that the only way out of that area is to come through the robot and get milked.
Okay,
And that,
and so
that
go ahead.
permission is granted based on not only her time since her last milking, but the robot is constantly calculating what her expected yield would be. So once her expected yield reaches the level we set for it, and it will grant permission back in.
Okay, so are they pretty much coming through here about twice a day? Is that?
Twice a day, a little bit more we shoot for. Ideally, you know, you end up with some fractions of numbers. 2.8 times a day is really good for a lot of farms. Some cows in your herd will get milked 3-4 times a day. Jerseys especially, good cows on the robot. Jerseys like to move. Jerseys will come through a lot. We have some farms where the jerseys, we'll see them 4 or 5 times a day. So yeah, but generally somewhere between 2 and 3 times a day.
Okay, and somebody wants to know, does this process hurt the cows at all?
No, not at all. There's nothing in this process that would hurt them. These cows actually really grow to prefer being milked in the robot. It's extremely consistent, probably more consistent than human milking. They're in here, they're comfortable, they're getting something good to eat. Like I said, they're getting a nice tasty treat in there, so they don't at all. There are several precautions in place to make sure, for instance, that the water in the teat cleaner is within a comfortable range for the cow. There's a temperature sensor. If that water is too hot, it will not run the teat cleaner on the cow. Conversely, if it's too cold, nobody wants ice cold water on them. So it will also alert the farmer to that.
Okay, And the iodine that's put on at the end, why do they do
Yes.
that?
That is a treatment to sort of protect the cow in that teat after she's been milked. Basically a protection against germs and dirt, and also just a nice treatment to keep her basically in good health.
Very good. Did you have some other things you wanted to share with us, or do you want me to keep going through some of the questions?
Questions are great. I actually have the robot going to go into a manual mode when this cow is done. We're not going to let another one in. I was just going to kind of show you a little bit of the control from the screen, but sure, if you have questions, let's go with that.
Yeah, I do have a few other questions. How long have you been working with Maple Bottom Farm and their robot?
You broke up there on me. Did you have another question?
Yes. How long have you been working with Maple Bottom Farm and their robot as their robot technician?
Okay, I was part of their install. If you make me say a year, I'm not sure. I would say that they're probably in their 5th year maybe of having their robot. Sounds about right. So from the beginning, I've been their technician, coming in, trying to give them some advice along the way. Also working through any problems that they have. We also do a general maintenance. A lot of my job is doing maintenance on the robot just to make sure it is working well. So I'll take a second here. Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. You show us that, and then I have a few other questions that came in.
Okay, so for diagnostic reasons and everything, there's a lot of things I can control, like I said here on my robot tab here. You see a service, I can make all kinds of things happen. If you want to show the head right here, by hitting on the screen here, I can make my gripper to pick up the cup. I can make it roll over to check my positions. We have 2 different positions on tilt there. Our camera washes itself. Here we can spray a water on the lens. And here we dry it off by blowing an air on the lens. Here's the 2 lasers on I was talking to you about. You can see them on my hand here. This is how it's finding that teat under the cow. One finds a rough position, and then one fine tunes it to find that teat and to attach to it. So I'll shut those off. And that just gives a general idea. Like I said, all kinds of things here on this screen. We can get into a lot of the technical stuff, the electronic side of the robot. There's a lot of things I can check going through some of these menus here. This tells me the status of all my computer boards on the robot, which if we walk over, we'll take a look a little bit on the inside of this robot for anybody that likes the gadgety type stuff. We have several of these computer boards all over the robot. They're controlling all of our valves that function, all of our sensors associated with our valves. All of this runs on Linux for any of you that are getting into computers and like that kind of stuff. This is a Linux-based machine. We are networked on the Ethernet, so all this is communicating with the computer, and also the farmers. We can connect our phones and monitor our robot that way. Here's milk meters. Anybody who has DLT equipment at their farms, you might recognize these milk meters. You might have them in your parlor. The 25mm27, a lot of you might have those. Your pulsators up top here, again, providing pulsation. A lot of you might have these in your parlors or out on your pipelines even. Same thing, integrated into the robot here. Here we have our receiver jar. This is where the milk is being held until it is pumped over to the tank. Our milk pump, and here's our valve set. This is controlling where the milk goes. This valve will open when it's time to pump to send it to the tank. If we want to collect milk calves, for instance, we can get out to the milk house and collect it in a bucket, or any cow that's treated, or any cow that the robot monitors blood and conductivity, it will automatically divert cows that we think might have a problem with their milk or would not be healthy. So that's a little bit on the inside of the machine here. There's many, many working parts. It's great when it all works well. When it doesn't, that's when they call me. All hours of the day. This milks 24/7. So when there's a problem, the robot calls out or sends a message to an app to the farmer to alert them it's wrong. Hopefully they can get it fixed. If not, they call me. I can log in. I can do just about anything remotely to help them try to diagnose. Or I'm hopping in my van at 3 in the morning and go to visit a farm. So that's a quick look at the mechanics, the electric here. Any more questions?
Yeah, just a few more. So there are times that the robot can malfunction. Somebody wondered that. Do you ever shut the robot down?
Yeah, the robot, first thing that happens with your computer, when your computer starts having an issue, first thing you do, you restart it. Same thing with the robot. First thing we do is restart the robot. You'd be surprised. A lot of times that'll fix little glitchy issues. It gives it a fresh start on whatever it was doing. So step one, and then we go from there.
Okay, just 2 more quick questions for you. This is just one robot. How many cows can one robot milk in a day?
Oh, good question. I should have addressed that. So one robot can handle, DLT's recommendation is usually about 60 robot on this particular robot. We've seen more. If the cows are good cows that it can attach to quickly, you can get up to about 70 cows per one robot. At that point, if you're milking more, you put in a second robot, third, fourth. There's farms out there with 50 plus robots at one farm. So
wow.
Yeah, now there is a new generation of robot after this one called the V300. It is a faster robot, in particularly how the camera attaches. It's very efficient at attaching, so it can milk more cows in the herd and also more cows per hour if you want to look at it that way.
Okay, how much does this technology cost?
Don't hold me to any numbers here. The robot itself, just to set the robot in on the low end, I'm not exactly sure. I'll say DLT might really get me on this. Let's just say to get everything in, build your barn, everything, you're looking in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want to say one robot is around $200. And that's without your bulk tank to cool your milk, your vacuum pumps, your air compressors, the stainless steel pipeline. It adds up quick. Your barn scraper, all that kind of stuff.
So this is definitely an investment, but a really neat technology that, depending on what your goals are at your operation, something that's, you know, worthwhile. So
absolutely. And the idea is that it frees up labor time and cost of paying, if you're paying workers to come in and milk your cows. This is in place of that.
Yeah. Some people want to know what happens if the power goes out.
Here.
Oh, you going over here? Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna get some more cows in here to milk.
Yep.
Yeah, power out. Most farms, if it's a brief power outage, you just cross your fingers, hope it comes back on. If it's going to be a long outage, most farms will have a generator that they hook up to a tractor, and they can provide power for their farm enough to keep milking, hopefully off of that generator.
And if there's internet issues, how does that work with this technology?
Internet issues, internally, as long as the computer and the router, for everybody out there familiar getting into that kind of stuff, most of you probably are by now, It will continue to milk internally without issue as long as the internal network is up. If the actual internet is down, that would simply mean that the farmer couldn't log into their robot from where they're at, probably wouldn't receive alarms. I couldn't log in for remote help. But if it's just the internet to the outside world down, the robot itself will keep milking.
Okay. Well, this has been very informative. We really appreciate you joining us. For those of you watching live, feel free to keep sending in those questions. If we have time, we will be catching up with Vickie here again, and we can possibly get her to answer some of them. But we appreciate you being with us today, Kevin. Thanks for all you're doing there at Maple Bottom Farm.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Interesting fact, only about 150 farms in Pennsylvania have a robot, so it was really neat for us to get to experience that technology today that can be used on farms. As always, get those questions in if you have them. We'll catch up with Vickie a little later, but now we are going to welcome another of our special guests, and that is our newly crowned Pennsylvania alternate dairy princess, Katerina Kaufman. Hello, Kat. Are you there?
I am. How are you doing?
Good. How are you today?
Pretty good. It's a wonderful and beautiful farm we have here.
Great. Well, we're going to let you introduce yourself and our next rotation for the careers.
Awesome. So hello, my name is Katerina Kaufman and I'm the Pennsylvania alternate dairy princess. I'm originally from Huntington County, where I grew up on my grandparents' dairy farm, Tom Glow Farms, and there I work and we milk about 150 Holsteins and Jerseys twice a day. So it's great to be here. And for our next rotation, we have Jeff Ansel, and he's with Nutrition Ag Solutions, excuse me, and he is a crop specialist, and we're going to learn more about the feed. So
great. Thanks, Kat. Well, it looks like Jeff is going to be joining us out by the feed bunks, which is where the Baker family stores their feed. And Jeff is a crop specialist, like Kat said, and they are an important part of the dairy farm because the cows need good quality forages to live a healthy life. So Jeff, we're looking forward to hearing more about what your job is on Maple Bottom Farm and what you do as a crop specialist. Welcome.
Hi guys, glad to be here. So yes, I am I'm Jeff and I do work for Nutrient Ag Solutions. I am their crop consultant here. I work very closely with Vickie and Mike to produce quality forages for them to obviously make good feed to feed to their cows to make milk. We do approximately 80 acres worth of corn here with another 80 to 90 acres worth of grass hay, 30 acres of wheat, 20 acres of sorghum Sudan grass, and approximately 5 acres of sunflowers there too. I'm standing behind me, where I am standing at is our feed bunker, where we are. We've got our BMR corn silage stored in. Just got done chopping here about 2 weeks ago. Here, there is approximately 1,000 tons worth of corn silage in this trench here behind us. This should be, along with the 2 upright silos here, that will compose approximately 50% of our ration here that we're going to be feeding to our cows. The balance of the ration would consist of grass baleage, some dry hay, and a protein mix. The cows are fed a PMR, partial mix ration, where our forages are fed, along with the rest of the balance of the protein mix there going through the robot pellet that you guys would have just looked at. My job with Nutrient is to not only work with customers like Vickie and Mike, but make cropping recommendations on fertility, hybrid selection, herbicide use. I work with farms all over southwestern Pennsylvania to maximize yields and to grow quality forage for these dairy farms to obviously make milk and keep healthy cows. So that's kind of my job in a nutshell.
Very good. If you're watching live and you have questions for Jeff, go ahead and get those in the chat box and we'll make sure to answer them. But I do have a few questions for you. One question is, do you do soil testing before you plant the crops?
We do. So that's part of what that's part of my recommendations to everybody that I work with. And we do that here at Maple Bottom. We do soil samples at least once every 3 years is what my minimum recommendation is. I like to see guys actually soil sample every year. There is no need to be, we need to make sure that we've got our fertility rate here to maximize yields, but we also don't want to be over applying nutrients here, whether it be through manure or through poly fertilizers there. Costs a lot of money to put nutrients out on those fields, and we want to be as cost efficient as we possibly can. And a soil sample is one of the easiest and quickest ways there to know what our crop needs are.
Very good. I had someone chat a question about the tires that we see on the bunker behind you. So if you could just give us a little background, what are the tires used for? Maybe the differences of, why feed is stored in this type of storage in a bunker or a silo, maybe some of that process and why that's important on the farm?
Sure. So so to answer the first part of the question, that underneath, this is 2 layers of plastic. One underneath with 2 top covers folded over top, a layer of plastic on top of it, and then tires are actually thrown on top of the plastic just to hold it down to keep the wind from blowing it. That's basically all the tires are there for, is weight. It's just to hold down the plastic. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The difference is of feed storage. So this is a bunker,
Okay.
Why would maybe they use this and a silo and some of that process? And
so there's lots of different ways we can be storing feed. This is what we would call a bunker silo or a trench silo. We're dumping it on the ground, pushing it with blades up, stacking it, and then rolling it in and packing it tight with other tractors there to compress it, to keep it stored. This would be a fermented feed storage. It's quick. You get a lot of tons in this way. The most efficient, cost-effective there for fast feed storage. Standing right in front of me here, and the camera's moving around here, you're going to see 2 upright silos here. These were the norm. And still a lot of them are being used here today. These 2 silos are used here today. Again, for fermented feed storage, there is what those are. They have unloaders in them where we blow the feed to the top of it, it falls down, and then there is an unloader on the top of it there that feeds from the top down. Behind us here, or I guess off to my side here, the white marshmallow looking things, for those of you that don't know, those are round bales of hay that would be put in at a higher moisture level. That would be what we would call baleage. That is another way that we're storing feed, is wrapping it in plastic. So there's lots of different ways that you can store feed. Just depends on what situation you're in and whether you're wanting to feed fermented feed or dried feed. You could be putting it in an ag bag, which is basically a long tube, long cylindrical plastic tube. Dry storage, dry stacking, grain bins. There's lots of different ways to be storing feed.
Great, thanks. That's helpful to see some of those. We have quite a few questions coming in here.
Okay.
Somebody wants to know, how often do you rotate crops?
So we are on, that's a little bit of a harder question to answer because every situation is a little bit different. Our rotation here is primarily 4 years of corn alternated with 4 years of grass hay, but it is varying based on what our needs are. Needs for the cows are, if we need more corn, we're going to take some hay acres away or sorghum Sudan acres away and plant more corn. But typically a 4 on, 4 off rotation is kind of what we are doing. A lot of my other producers are going with a 3 crop rotation where we're doing 1 year of corn, 1 year of soybeans, and 1 year of wheat. It all depends on what, here again, going back to our soil samples, it all depends on what our fertility is here on some of these farms and what our yield goals are to know what our rotation should be. But here we're going with 4 years of corn rotated to 4 years of hay. The bean, we did not plant any beans here this year, soybeans. We actually rotated that out this year. We're going to be putting wheat in because we've got a greater profit opportunity with wheat than what we do with soybeans. So, yeah, like I said, it all depends on which farm you're at. But for here, we're going with 4 years of corn and then rotating back to 4 years of hay.
But that's something you, as the crop specialist, you work with your producers to help them figure out what's best and how to best utilize the land that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How much corn is grown there at Maple Bottom Farm?
We're doing about 80 acres.
Okay.
80 acres worth of BMR corn is what we're doing. Our 2021 year, we've got it planned where we're going to be planting approximately 110 acres of corn. So our rotation here again, our rotation is going to be changing a little bit. We're going to go a little heavier on corn next year. We didn't quite have the yield that we wanted to here this year with our drought that we were in. We're going to be a little bit tight on feed inventories here. So we're hoping that planting 30 more acres is going to build our feed inventory for next year.
Okay. Do you have certain times of the year that your job is busier than other times?
I do. The months basically starting, and it's depending on kind of what the weather does, but we'll say by the end of March, beginning of April, I'm leaving the house at 4 in the morning and I hope to be home by midnight. At least 6 days a week. And that'll run basically because part of my job there as well, I also run a self-propelled spray rig where I'm applying chemistry and fertilizer to about 15,000 acres for other customers there as well. So with the custom application part, we're running hard from the beginning of April until we'll say mid to end July, kind of in that until we get the crops in the ground and get everything fertilized the way that we need it to. We're looking at 3.5 to 4 months out of the year. And then after that, things kind of start to slow down. I slip back more into a consultant kind of role then at that point. Right now, we're full blown into doing seed orders for next year. We're already, we've been planning next year's crop for months now at this point. So yeah, I guess there are certain times of the year that are definitely busier. With that said, come Christmas time, if it's cold outside there as far as that goes, guys are the month of December there, guys are they're wanting to be in tree stands hunting, spending time with family there as far as that goes. I mean, it's hard to find customers, so that basically gets to the point where I'm my time gets pretty slow there too.
Okay. Somebody wants to know if you have a favorite part of your job and a least favorite part and maybe hardest part of your job. So just some of those things.
Okay. My favorite part of my job is working with my customers. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, it's my favorite part of my job. a lot of my customers I've known them for years. They're family. They're like family to me. I take my job very seriously from the aspect that what's good for them is also good for me. So I try to treat their business as if it was my own. That is by far and away, one of the best things about my job is whenever I see my customers have a good crop, whenever I see them have a success story. Like we tried something different here at Maple Bottom this year. We planted 5 acres of sunflowers for some agritourism, and it ended up being a huge success. It was something that it was great to see them succeed at that. I mean, that's definitely the most rewarding part about my job. Worst part of my job, I can't pinpoint one thing in particular. There's definitely stressful times of the year, like I'd said, in springtime, when we're going full bore trying to get crops in the ground. Probably the most stressful part of my job is whenever the weather just doesn't want to cooperate, and we're either getting too much rain, not enough rain, we're getting winded out, or whatever. I mean, that's probably the most stressful part of my job. I work with guys in all kinds of different financial situations. I mean, that can get to be challenging there at different times there for how we're gonna, I guess that's part of my job there too. Like Angela Pecora here. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to get all this to cash flow and what makes the most sense for them and what gives them the most profit opportunities. So
Absolutely. I think we have a few more minutes here that I do have a few other questions that came in. Somebody
Sure.
wants to know how long the feed will keep in storage.
So this fermented feed here at this farm, it'll be fed pretty much so within 18 months after it was put in. It's storage is one of those tricky things there that if everything goes right, if it's put in at the right kind of moistures, if it's covered properly, if there's no damage done to it. In the meantime, I mean, assuming the critters don't get into it, that the cows don't get off or don't get out and run across the top of the corn silage trench. I mean, so with that said, I mean, I think that we can safely store fermented feed for, 2-3 years there without too much of a risk. Obviously the goal is to have enough feed carry over there that we're not running short every year and coming right down to the wire. But I mean, our goal here is that we've got enough feed. We have enough feed for 18 months to basically have a 6-month carryover every year after every cropping season. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, I think that's good. One other question for you, and I'm not sure, I know you're not the farmer there, but someone wants to know how they get all this feed that we see behind you and some of those other places you showed us. How do they actually get that from there to the cows?
So how do they get that from there to the cows? So that's partly what the mixer wagon down here is for. It's brought into the trenches and into the silo here in trucks, and then at that point we load it with a skid loader into the mixer wagon, where it is going to deliver it to the cows there twice a day there via every time they're mixing feed there, as far as that goes.
Okay, that's helpful. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, Jeff. We can see that your job plays a key role in providing important resources for the cows to be healthy. So thanks so much for your time and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
If you guys have any other questions for Jeff, feel free to chat those in the box in the live comment stream. We'll try to get to as many as we can. One quick reminder, if you have not already done so, we do have that discussion guide that's available to follow along with today's tours. It's an interactive tool, and it goes over the topics we're covering, key points made during our career rotations. And we are just about ready to end here, and we're going to play a Kahoot game. So you're going to want the link to that Kahoot game And there's also additional links on there to find out more about some of the careers we discussed today. You can find the link to that discussion guide in the description of the YouTube video on the DLT Farm Tour page at www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com or in the informational email that you would have gotten prior to today's tour. Don't forget, you have to download it to be able to fill in those answers, save it on your computer. Otherwise, the web version will not save those answers. All right, I think at this time, we are going to transition back to Vickie. And she's going to be joining us live. We're going to kind of wrap up things here. We have a few questions for her, and she's just going to give us some closing thoughts. Are you there, Vickie?
All right, so we are actually here with Vickie back in the barn, and she is going to wrap us up today talking about the cooperative.
All right. Vickie's going to just give us a little bit of information on that A2 milk that she discussed earlier and what they do with the Guernsey Association. I know she mentioned in her video earlier that they milk a lot of Guernseys there. And so she's going to just tell us a little bit of background on that. And then we'll get some more questions for you, Vickie. So go ahead.
Sounds great. Thanks. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit next about the cooperative that we have formed here with ourselves and a couple of other Guernsey herds across the state. The name of our cooperative is Naturally Golden Family Farms. And while most of our milk goes to Land O'Lakes, we have formed a cooperative, myself, other partners in that co-op in Pennsylvania. Our goal is to be able to market Golden Guernsey milk. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, Golden Guernsey milk was the primary milk of the 50s and 60s, and the breeds have shifted in popularity over those years. But I became passionate about Guernsey cows at a very young age, and my first Guernsey calf, actually, Garnet, one of the rooms in our bed and breakfast is actually named after her. So I've been thinking about Guernsey cows for a long time. We're joined today right now by Flip Flop, and Flip Flop is actually my son's favorite cow here in the barn, and she lives in our Princess Pack. So the idea behind the Guernsey Co-op was to create a niche market for ourselves and for other friends in the Guernsey community. And we wanted to create that market so that we could produce that Golden Guernsey milk and other dairy products. So again, the tagline in the 50s and 60s was everything good and more. And we talked about the beta casein, the A2 beta casein, which is increasing in popularity in certain sects of the public. For example, is autistic and has celiac disease, so he has a gluten intolerance. And he also, whenever he was visiting the Cleveland Clinic, his doctor told him that he should be drinking A2 Guernsey milk. And so in that population, that is a common intolerance that happens. And so we know that that's a growing population, and for other people as well, that they can't digest that milk. And so we're not just focusing on A2 though, we're focusing on Golden Guernsey milk, and Guernsey milk is golden in color. If we were actually to compare it to regular table milk, it would look yellow whenever you actually look at that, because the Guernsey cow does not digest the beta carotene that is in her milk or that she consumes. And so she passes that directly out into her milk to you. And so it gives that milk a golden hue and a nice, rich, dark flavor. Guernsey cows also are high in fat and protein. They make a little bit less milk than the Holstein cow, but they have higher fat and protein in their milk. And so when we set out in this adventure, it was several years ago. And Mike and I knew that here on the farm that we wanted to do something, and we had friends that wanted to do things. So we got together, we formed some teams, and we started to talk. And we want to thank the Center for Dairy Excellence for actually helping us with some of those transformation teams, because we did apply for some grants and got those, and that kind of got some of that rolling. So she's liking to show off, right? You can tell that she should be at a show today, but we decided to spend the day here with you guys instead. And so we decided to work with friends to get this done. Now, none of us actually wanted to handle the actual manufacturing of the product. We want to handle the marketing of the product and the making of the product. We didn't want to invest the actual money into, at this point in time anyway, the actual manufacturing equipment. So we've partnered with another farm, and we've actually made 4 or 5 batches of cheese now. We've got cheese curds that we've made, and we have cheddar, which is currently aging, and it will be 90 days old on Christmas. So that's pretty exciting that we'll be able to bring a cheddar to market. And I think they're going to bring me some of the cheese curds here that we've got. Just pulled those out this morning. But those are some of the cheese curds that we've been making. Now, cheese actually was secondary to us. We actually want to focus on making the milk. And well, we make the milk every day, but bottling the milk. And this project will started, we hope soon. Next week, I actually meet with the processor. Our board will get together with the processor who has agreed to bottle that milk for us. And so again, this has been a real process and a real journey, something that we've been working on. Our co-op actually was established last year. And it hasn't been an inexpensive venture either. Capital was a huge part of this, and we knew that we wanted to, again, be able to have other Guernsey breeders join us later. So we've formed a co-op. We have a president. I'm the president. We have a treasurer and a secretary and other board members as well. For that, we have a weekly check-in. We have regular meetings, and we have actually at this point pretty much all of the cheese that we can make. At this point in time, we've got sold, but we are seeking other adventures. So one of my jobs will be, as we move forward, to actually work on selling the cheese. And so that involves, setting up appointments with not just distributors, but with chefs. We've had chefs here to the farm. We had a local culinary group come out and tour this past summer, and they talked to us about the things that they want and the local foods that they want, because they do believe that they want fresh quality products. And so I know that many of us are involved in dairy, but it's different. They want that local connection, and it doesn't matter. I tell them where in Pennsylvania they're getting their dairy products from, but we certainly would love them to buy, our Guernsey products. And we're going to just focus on a couple to start. As I said, we've got this cheddar cheese going and aging. We're making a butter case cheese. Guernseys themselves came from the Isle of Guernsey, which is just off the coast of France. And so buttercase is a creamy, soft cheese that stems from that region. And so it kind of will take us back roots. Again, there's 6 of us that are in the co-op, and as we grow in capacity, we will grow the number of farms that we're able to bring on board. In Western Pennsylvania, we've got about 12 or 15 Guernsey herds. Which is pretty unique because we only register about 4,000 Guernseys in the United States annually. So many of them are concentrated here in Western Pennsylvania, and we hope that many of those other producers can come on into the co-op. Again, here we have a separate group. Our Guernsey group is milked in tie stalls, which we do twice, and they come in behind us. We do genomic test them. We test for A2 as well, and then we process that milk, load it into a separate tank, and then it goes in from there into a separate truck to the cheesemaker currently. And then we have like I said, someone who will be starting to actually manufacture and process the milk. The interesting part about this job is just meeting with the marketing agencies, talking to them about all the social media that they can do for us. We have a great video that they came out and helped us put together that we can share, and I can share that to you guys. If you follow our page, our Maple Bottom Farm page, we'll have the Naturally Golden links on there too. Also, there's a lot of paperwork and regulation that go into this. You know, I have paperwork that's due to the state right now. I probably need to get some of that in, and also quality reports that we have to send in. So those are some of the things that, you know, we have to do as board members. We also have a consultant that we brought on who is helping us to push this project forward. So while some folks say that, you know, they want to do this because they want to eliminate, and I can honestly say that it's been a real learning curve for us, and we're still pretty early in the process, but there's a lot of things that go into marketing and selling your own product.
Absolutely. Thanks for that information. So just so our viewers are clear, you have this separate group of Guernseys that don't get milked in that robot that we saw earlier, correct?
That's correct, Heidi. I guess we might have missed that part in the tour. So we have a separate group of Guernsey cows. We're actually managing the number of cows in that group right now because our cheese maker can process 2,000 pounds of cheese, 2,000 pounds of milk time in his vat, and our Guernseys are currently yielding 12.5% on the cheese manufacturing. So we're managing the number of cows that go into this separate tie stall group. You can see we let those cows out in the freestall area still, but we bring them in here twice a day. We milk them separate than the robot, and that milk then goes into be manufactured into cheese. And again, we're kind of managing the number of cows based on the number of pounds that we need right now.
Yeah, so that actually was a question somebody brought up when we were with the robot. How come you measure the cow's milk in pounds, but then when we go and buy it at the store, it's measured in gallons?
Sure. So on a dairy farm, we're paid per 100 pounds of milk that we produce. And so in the state of Pennsylvania, the average cost of production is about $18 to $19 per 100 pounds. And then we get paid from whoever it is that's purchasing our milk from us on the per 100 pounds. And so I don't know why it ever was 100 pounds actually, but there are 12.8 pounds, I'm sorry, there are not 12.8, that was on our yield, I'm sorry. There are 9.6 pounds of milk per gallon, and so about 12 gallons in there. I'm sorry, I said 9, it's 8. My numbers are all screwed up right now, Heidi. I'm sorry. But they buy a gallon of milk, which is 8.6, and that's about 12 gallons is what we sell it for per 100 pounds. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so on your farm, about how much milk are you making every day? Maybe tell us, you know, with the robot herd and then also with the Guernsey herd.
Right. So again, we're managing the Guernsey herd to 2,000 pounds, and then depending on the number of cows that are through the robot, which we're only putting about, right now it's really low. There's only 47 cows going through there because in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a lot of cows calve. But we're shipping about, I'm trying to think of total pounds here right now. We probably ship about 7,500 pounds of milk every other day to 8,000 pounds.
Okay. And so actually you answered a few questions with what you just shared with us. Somebody wondered about, you know, if you're doing any other products besides milk, and you said about the cheese curds and stuff. So that's really good information that our viewers were wondering. And just those of you viewing live, if you have questions for Vickie, get those in. We have a few minutes here to answer some questions. Earlier, Vickie, I had somebody ask some questions on your feedback on, you know, are the cows harming the atmosphere with the methane they leave off when they, you know, leave out gases? Do you have any thoughts you want to share on that?
Sure. Without actual studies in front of me, I'm sure that we can reference those, but absolutely, I can talk to you a little bit about methane. So cows do produce methane. They produce methane whenever they burp. They produce methane in their manure, but there are a lot of studies out there that show that, you know, the the greenhouse gases that are being emitted aren't necessarily coming from cows. There were some commercials that were out recently from a fast food restaurant that said that, you know, cows had farts, and they weren't really well received actually by a lot of people. And they do, you know, they make a lot of smell sometimes and a lot of mess. But no, methane gas, if you looked at the number of people that were now off the street in states like California and in cities like LA, they have their better quality now because people haven't been traveling, and we do it every day. We produce more methane gas across the state and across the country in other industries and in other consumable goods, things like cars. And so, yes, absolutely, cows are going to produce methane. It is what it is. But what I can say is that we're producing more with today's cows than we did in the past. And so the cows of today are more efficient. My brother talked to you a little bit earlier on our crop side about growing BMR corn. So the cows are digesting more nutrients. Nutrients weren't previously available, and they've become more efficient. They produce more milk than they did, like I said, in the 50s, 60s, back into the 20s. The number of cows actually has decreased dramatically over that period of time, while the amount of methane gas that's being produced overall has gone up. So I'm pretty sure it's not really cow related.
Well, thanks for your insight on that. I know that's a topic that a lot of people have questions on, so we appreciate that. I've had a few questions about what happens with the cows if when they stop producing milk, or if they get sick and pass away. What do you guys do with the cows then?
I'm sorry, I think I missed part of that. If they get sick, what happens to them then?
Yeah, or when they're done
milk.
When they're done producing milk. Yep.
Okay. So dairy cows are unique in that they actually have two careers in their life. They start out their career in training whenever they're growing until they meet 2 years old. And then they end up like Flip Flop here, who is 2. She's had her first calf, and she's now producing milk. And hopefully she's going to be here for a number of years. You know, certainly, especially Flip Flop, her mother and her grandmother were extra special here on farm, and their careers ended a little bit differently because they're actually buried in the pasture. They're the only 2 other cows actually buried here. But cows typically, they end their career and they leave the dairy industry, and then they start their second career in the beef industry. And so dairy cows enter the beef industry, and they become mostly ground meat that you would have in fast food restaurants, or the better cuts, the better finished animals will end up as steaks in some of our chain restaurants. But we produce a high percent of the beef in this country comes from dairy cows who are retiring from their dairy career for one reason or another, whether she is no longer fertile and we couldn't get her pregnant, or maybe she became lame and it got hard for her to walk around. Whatever that reason is, here on our farm, our veterinarian, who you'll meet at the next farm, actually, he's here at least once a month. He'll be here next week. His day is Tuesday this month, but he'll be here. It should have been today, guys, but we rescheduled. So he'll be here on Tuesday. But we work with a veterinarian to minimize that. Again, we talked earlier about vaccines, minimize diseases. And if we do have to treat a cow, we do with antibiotics here, but I do want to let you guys know, and I'm not sure that we talked about this, but I do want to let you guys know that we do use antibiotics on the farm, absolutely. But every load of milk in this country is tested for antibiotics. So know that your food is safe. Know that it's all antibiotic free, no matter what the label says on it, and know that that your cows are treated to the best of our ability. And that we're producing safe quality food for you.
Well, you can tell that cow there is spoiled and loved.
Yes.
One last question I have. One of the reasons we had to be virtual today is because of COVID. And so we have had quite a few questions come in, wondering, do cows get COVID, and can humans pass it to the cows, and those kinds of things. I don't know if you have any insight on that or not, Vickie.
Sure. So COVID has certainly impacted us here on the farm, very minimally. We have a sign at the end of our driveway. Again, the Center for Dairy Excellence provided those, that, we're still working every day. So farms continue to work crisis. Can cows get COVID? It's a great question. So COVID is a coronavirus. And we talked earlier about that colostrum in the calves. Our cows actually are vaccinated for several diseases, which they includes rotavirus, coronavirus, E. coli, and Clostridium as dry cows, so that they can build an immune response for those diseases, which again includes corona. However, the corona strain that we talk about in cows is not the same corona strain that we talk about in human health and with COVID. They're different. Typically in cows, the corona strain talking about is to deal with fecal diseases, with causing scours or diarrhea in cows, and not necessarily with respiratory disease, although it can happen. And but again, the strains are different in cows. So cows can get corona, but they don't get COVID-19.
Okay. And somebody did wonder, how often do you vaccinate the cows?
Yes. So I worked for a company called Zoetis, and we are the a manufacturer of vaccines. And I work with veterinarians and protocols vaccination. So on our dairy, what we do is each calf gets, her mom gets vaccinated while the cow is dry before she has her calf, so that she gets immunity from vaccines right away through colostrum. Then as soon as the calf is born, we give it an oral vaccine for that rota and coronavirus. That has to happen at least 30 minutes before she gets that colostrum, because it goes through her mouth and it has to start that way. Then in that first day, 12 hours later, we give a vaccine that goes through her nose, an intranasal vaccine. And that helps with 3 viruses, like we talked earlier, IBR, BRSV, and PI3. Wait until she starts to, right before we move her into those group hens, we give that in-force vaccine again. And then after that, she'll get 2 more vaccines at about 4 to 6 months old, where we bring in some lepto and some other diseases that we vaccinate for. Then she gets another one pre-breeding, because we also worry about cows getting reproductive viruses. So we give her a vaccine pre-breeding. And then we wait until she's pregnant and she comes back in again and gets another, those vaccines that help her to prevent diseases like mastitis, to keep her from getting E. coli mastitis. Also to pass things on to her colostrum. And then again, that cycle starts about 30 days after she has her own calf. Again, we give her another one of those viral vaccines. In addition, in the wintertime, you can actually vaccinate with a Bacterin for bacterial diseases, bacterial pneumonia. And so we give that seasonally each year. So a cow has a full life cycle of immunity that she gets from vaccines, and that just happens at different stages. And we work with our veterinarian to determine what the risks are on our farm, because just because of that is being manufactured doesn't mean that it's necessarily needed on somebody's farm.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate the chance to tour Maple Bottom Farm this morning and to learn about a few of the key people that work with you, like your accountant, your robot technician, your crop specialist. We just want to thank you so much for letting us be with you today. It's been a wonderful learning experience. Is there any other comments you had as we wrap up?
I just want to encourage each of you that are listening to explore different careers, to know that whatever career that you choose, always promote yourself to the best of your ability, and to know that, things may change, and that people are always watching you and watching you develop, and they will follow you throughout your career. So whatever career that you choose, just make sure that you give it as much as you can. And I also want to thank the folks that were here today: Jeff Ansel from Nutrien, Angela Pecora from $1 Million Accounting, and also Kevin Holhall from Graham's Dairy Supply, who I got awake this morning at 4 o'clock on a technician call because when I got to the barn, the robot was stopped. So again, these people are important to our business, to helping us every single day. And there's just so many people out there that agriculture and dairy in particular can so many different career opportunities and people that we use every day on our farm to help us be successful. So thanks to them, thanks to you guys at the Center for Dairy Excellence for putting this on. And I hope that there are questions that you'll feel free to reach out and, you know, talk to us at any time.
Absolutely. Well, we just really appreciate you sharing all of this. I know it's been a busy and crazy morning for you, but there's lots always going on a farm. So thank you.
Sure.
Your farm and family are beautiful, and we just it was a pleasure learning more about them. As we wrap up this morning's tour,
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you. I just want to once more thank our sponsors, our partners who would not be possible to have this tour if we did not have these. So Hydrate and Zoetis, once again, thank you to both of those companies. They do have incredible opportunities for careers within the dairy industry. So if you're looking for jobs, check them out. Don't forget, if you haven't already, make sure you click the red subscribe button at the top of our YouTube channel. We want to make sure you get notified of any future virtual events that we do. Lastly, to finish up for the day, we are going to launch a Kahoot game to recap what we learned at Maple Bottom Farm. So I'm going to give a few seconds here for them to get that going and hope that I understand how all this is going to work. Are we ready for the Kahoot game? I'm not sure if you guys are seeing the Kahoot link. Here we go. I think we're going now. Okay, we're going to wait a few seconds to let enough of you join. Again, if you wanted the link for that, that was in the discussion guide. I mentioned that a few times. So hopefully we have some folks that were able to get that link and are joining us. All right, looks like we're getting some folks joining. Just give you guys a few minutes. Hopefully you can take what you learned here this morning on Maple Bottom Farm and put it to good use here. I think we have about 8 questions, and we're gonna just do a shortened version of the Kahoot, but any of you who are teachers out there and joining us for this tour, in that discussion guide, we do have a longer version of a Kahoot game if you would like to use that with your students. We're getting lots of people joining. That's great. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds here because still looks like I have people joining us. We have about 200 people on the Kahoot game, so. All right. I thought maybe we were slowing down, but we're still getting quite a few people joining. All right, I think we can probably launch that now. It looks like we're slowing down. So once we launch the question, you will have about 30 seconds to answer the question. So here we go. We're going to start. All right, first question. When did the Baker family start milking cows? When did the Baker family start milking cows? 1962, 2006, 1999, or 2015? Get those answers in. If you can remember when the Baker family started milking cows. Vickie talked about that in her introduction. Okay, well, it looks like a lot of people picked 1962, which was not correct. 2006 is when actually Vickie and Mike started milking cows. She did mention that she grew up on a farm earlier, and so maybe some of you got that date confused with when she was working with her family farm, but 2006 was when they started milking cows. We're going to go to the next question, number 2. Oh, there's our winner, Lively Dolphin 34. You're our winner so far. All right, question number 2. How many cows did the Bakers milk on this farm? How many cows did the Bakers milk on this farm? So if you remember, they kind of have 2 separate herds there. They have the group that goes through the robots, and then they have their special Guernsey cows that get milked separately. So all together, we want to know how many cows the Bakers milk on their farm. Our options are 20, 500, 78, and 800. I'm sorry, 2,600, 78, and 700. 800. Okay. I think our answers are in there. So how many cows did the Bakers milk? Looks like many of you got the right answer with 78. 78. We'll see who the winner is now, our leaderboard. We have a new leader here, Sam I Am. New leader. Okay. Question number 3. Why did the Baker family put a robotic milker in their barn? So some options. It was less expensive. It was less labor intensive. More cattle can be milked. Or there's a higher rate of cows that can be milked per hour. I know the robot technician talked a little bit about this and why most people are putting robots in, and we see this technology getting put in farms. So why did the Baker family put a robotic milker in their barn? A few more seconds here. Get those answers in. Okay, looks like many of you said so that more cattle can be milked. However, the answer is it's less labor intensive. So remember the technician had mentioned that if guys have trouble finding labor or want to have less labor being used to milk the cows, they can put in this robot, and that takes the place of some of those people actually doing that job. All right, so less labor intensive. See, we got a new leader, KH. Awesome. We're going to go to our next question. What is the A2 in milk? So I know Vickie talked a lot about that in some of her introduction. She talked about that here at the end in her Guernsey barn. So this A2 milk, which is kind of a special thing, is it because it's a specific type of butter fat? It's a specific type of protein called beta casein. It's a specific lactose sugar, or is it a specific type of protein called BCM7? So Vickie did give us a lot of information on this A2 milk and how it's kind of a special thing, and the Guernsey cow is more prevalent to have it naturally, but that they're breeding for this specific type of milk. So what is the specific thing? It's a butterfat protein called beta casein, lactose sugar, or a specific type of protein called BCM7. Let's see who remembers what Vickie told us about this. Well, looks like we have a lot of folks that remember this one. It's a type of protein in the milk called beta casein, and can help folks that think maybe they're lactose intolerant, but it may be just be that they, can't digest that certain thing in the milk. So we're finding popularity in this kind of milk. All right. Next question. Actually, we'll check the leaderboard here. KH, way to go. You're staying ahead there. Next question, number 5. Number 5 is about dairy products. Vickie just talked to us about that. What dairy products are produced in the Guernsey cooperatives? So she gave some specific examples there when she just ended her tour in the Guernsey barn, and she told us what they are specifically working on there on products: cheddar cheese, ice cream, cheese curds, yogurt. You can have more than one answer in this question. That helps any of you out. Cheddar cheese, ice cream, cheese curds, or yogurt. Leave a few more seconds. Get those answers in. Dairy products that they're producing with their Guernsey herd. Okay, so it looks like most of you at least got one of the two. The two possible answers were the cheddar cheese, which is, if you remember, she said they have it currently aging. It will be ready on Christmas. And then she showed us an example of the cheese curds that they're making with their Guernsey milk. So awesome. Let's check our leaderboard, see where we're at here. Sam, I am back at the top. All right. We are going to go to question number 6. We have 3 more questions. 2 incentives for the cows to get milked by the robotic milker. So we can have 2 answers on this one. 2 incentives for the cows to be milked by the robotic milker. Number 1, cows get their sweet feed and water while being milked. The cows get their back scratched while being milked. The cows get a daily bath, or the cows get utter relief when they are milked. So the technician gave us 2 reasons, 2 incentives for the cows to want to come in and go to that robotic milker. See if you can remember those. They get milk, or they get their sweet feed and water while they're being milked. Do they get their back scratched while being milked? Do they get their daily bath? Or do they get utter relief when they are being milked? Again, 2 possible answers on this one. All right. Looks like many of you remembered that they incentivize them to get their sweet feed and water while they're in that robot milker. And then, of course, cows want to be milked. They need to be milked at least twice a day to get that relief from their udders filling up. So Those were our two answers we were looking for. Let's see our leaderboard now. Looks like Sam I Am has stayed at the top. All right, two more questions. Number 7. Name other forms of agribusiness on this farm. So we talked about some new adventures that the Baker family has taken on, new businesses that they're trying, along with milking cows. I know I talked about it in the introduction, and you heard a lot about some of these this morning. So 2 new adventures possible on this question. Other forms of agribusiness. Is it a bed and breakfast? Is it an ice cream shop? Is it a corn maze? Or is it a sunflower maze? Again, 2 possible answers for this question. Two possible answers. You only have a few more seconds to get those answers in. Awesome. Many of you remembered the sunflower maze because we saw lots of pictures. And if you remember at the beginning, Brittany joined us from their bed and breakfast. So some other things that they're doing on that farm. All right, let's check our leaderboard. CMIM, you have remained at the top. Here's our last opportunity to get points. Our last question, the ultimate goal at Maple Bottom Farm. What is the ultimate goal? So do they, in the future, just want to milk 100 cows? Would they like to milk only Guernsey cows? Would they like to show high quality registered cows? Or would they like to have a successful B&B with calves only? So if you think about some of the things Vickie talked to us about this morning, do they only want to milk 100 cows? Do they want to milk only Guernsey cows? Do they want to show high quality registered cows? Or do they want to have a successful B&B with calves only? There's only one possible answer for this question. You have a few more seconds to get those answers in, and this will be our last question for the Kahoot. All right, yeah, this one was a little harder. Eventually, they would like to only milk Guernsey cows. Remember, they're part of that Guernsey cooperative and doing some fun things with that. So let's check our leaderboard, see where we ended up. This is 3rd place. 2nd place, Sam I Am, 2nd place. 1st place was Made You Look. That was the first you were at the top. Awesome. Very good with the Kahoot. I hope you enjoyed that. Congratulations to those of you that won, and hopefully you guys found that useful and fun to recap what we learned. Thank you guys for joining us today on our tour. Just a reminder, we will be doing our next live tour starting at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be joining Andrea Stoltzfus of Penwood Farms. We do have really good cell service at Penwood Farms, so we are going to be completely live there, and you will not want to miss Penwood Farms and all that they're doing. And so we will see you back at 1:45.